Oh, today we're talking about innovative schools. It should be a pretty good one. Come on back on the other side with us. And welcome back to another episode of the South Star Classroom. That's Omar. That's David. I am Charles. We do not have Queen Jubilee today, but I'm sure she is somewhere watching and we'll be back next week. Man, I'm very excited about the topic that we got, but it's not my topic. So I am throwing it over to you, Mr. Castillo. Don't know if we're going to be checking in, but that is your discretion, brother.
Yeah, thank you. Let's do that. Let's check in. I'm gonna go ahead and put the topic up here so people have that and they can, foreshadow what we're going to be talking about. But yeah, let's check in. Dr. Cole, you've been on the road. You've been a busy man.
Yeah.
What's happening?
I'm about to be back on the road. Leave again Thursday. Nah, man, just working, man, is good. I have just these projects have been rocking. Having some great partners that's just been stepping up to the plate, been very tired. I do have some somber news. I don't know how many of you all know Miss Sarah Carpenter. We're very close. She runs the Memphis Lift. I just went to her wedding last week before last in Memphis, and I'll be back in Memphis soon. But her daughter, her youngest daughter, Dee Dee, passed away.
Oh no.
Morning. This is us like 2 weeks ago. That's her with the two fingers up. This is the wedding dinner, the day before the wedding. She was a baby, man. She was only 42. We had just having some drinks and laughing about when I was coming back out to do this event. And man, life is precious, man. And so, for this woman to get married and go and embark on this new part of her life, to be tied to it, a week after her wedding anniversary just sucks, man. But I love you, Miss Sarah. This team loves you. And I will see you soon. And anything you need from me, I got you. So she's like one of my favorite people in the world, man. So my heart breaks her, and that family has embraced me in more ways than I even care to count. So they take care of me. And, I'm a little heartbroken.
Yeah, man. Condolences to her and her family. That's tragic news, man, especially so young.
Yeah, man. Very.
All right. Well, Omar, how are you doing, friend?
Yeah, man, just deep condolences, Charles, man, to the family. It's a lot to process, man, especially with like two of those occurrences happening so close to one another.
Yeah, man.
So deep sympathies there for the family. I have stopped being Bruce Wayne for a minute. I've been in 4 different cities in 2.5 weeks, and I am tired. So I am back home. We're finishing up the school year. I am finally trying to catch up on a number of things. Texas be wilding because like the budget concerns are massive. We got schools in incredible disarray. So I'm sitting here kind of watching these like castles crumble around me with these school districts. Meanwhile, just trying to figure out next year, we got our first graduating class of seniors that are going to start their senior year next year. So we're getting prepped, man. It's crazy. It's crazy how this all happened.
Yeah,
man. I'm getting started with an elementary school in a couple of years. So I'm a busy man. I'm just happy to be on this show talking about innovation.
Yeah. Things are good here. Again, busy, but also planning out some summer break. So we got to talk about the programming at some point. We've got a couple trips planned already for summer, which is good. We're going to be heading to Mexico, which is great.
Mexico.
And then we've got
Old Mexico or New Mexico?
Nuevo Mexico.
Mm.
Nos vamos para Nayarit. Yeah, I think it's Nayarit. And then we're gonna go camping too, up in the Sierras.
Oh,
That should
okay.
be that's gonna be nice. Yeah.
Where's Joshua Tree?
Joshua Tree is about 3 hours from me. It's like due east of LA. Yeah.
Got you.
You got to go through Palm Springs to get there. Yeah.
Okay.
Are you going there?
No. I just know you like camping and stuff. Did you enjoy camping there?
Oh yeah. No, we stayed in the house there, man.
Oh,
but we're going to be camping in the Sierras. Yeah.
Can you? I'm excuse my ignorance. Can you camp out at Joshua Tree?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I just didn't know. I've never been there, so.
Yeah, no, that was a different kind of vacation. That was like a Airbnb with a hot tub and the whole thing.
Oh, okay, got you. You was
That's
glamming
nice
it
out there, man. That's the right way, man.
He was glamping.
Yeah.
Glamping is the term that Californians have created. Yes,
that's right.
Glamour camping. All right. Yeah.
Albuquerque, Roadrunner City. There you go. Bill Conrad, what's going on? What's up? Toys here. All right, let's launch in. So we've talked about this before on the show, and I think new information comes out, and I thought I'd bring it back to the forefront. I think Omar, you brought a show a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a couple months ago, talking about the Carnegie units, right? This antiquated system through which modern day schooling has been kind of created, and we're talking about high schools in particular.
Indeed.
And so today we're going to talk about innovation in high schools. The vast majority of American high schools still look and have schedules and requirements very similar to what they did 50 years ago, even 75 years ago. But there is innovation. And I think, Charles, you work in a bunch of schools. I work in a bunch of schools. My son's about to be in high school. And, Omar, you've got a high school, right? You're going to have seniors next year.
Indeed.
So I wanted to bring this article forward from the people at the 74.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pull it up here real quick.
And that was a very fancy article. It was a fancy spread, man. When I was reading, I was checking it out. I said, okay, they like did a feature on this.
Yeah, kind of a nice layout. So
yeah,
they did like a campus road trip diary. 8 things we learned this year about the most innovative high schools. And so, I guess this is from last year, but that's fine. They essentially go through, and I'll just show the first couple and I'll talk through the rest. They kind of talk about some elements in innovative schools that they kind of call out, and I think there's like 8 common trends. The first is they don't worry about what came before, so not trying to do like a slight modification of what came before, but this is essentially like thinking super big, thinking very different, right, about what school could look like. Is number one. And then I think they highlight some of the schools in some of these. They focus intently on exactly what their students need, right? So focus and also personalization, right? We'll go through a couple of these. They call it a school here, Middle College in Rhode Island. Look at this. This is pretty cool. Harbor School. It's in New York. They embrace internships and personalization. So internships are when, it's an internship. Young people are actually, they're learning in the classroom, but they're also out in the real world, learning, working, experiencing, what the real world is, right? Getting their toes wet.
Paducah. I used to live in Paducah, Kentucky. It's an H at the end of that, but yes, I appreciate that love, Mr. Williams.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And so I'll read the rest of them. I think we can take this piece down now. Let's see. There's
just
one
a heads
more.
up, man. So keep scrolling right there. That's the Met. The Met is a big picture learning school.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
that's who we began. Like we've had Lauren on our show, who's from Big Picture Learning. So it's awesome to see that one of those schools got profiled here, because they've really led the way on internships and done it exceptionally well.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, they are the I mean, they're probably the largest like national organization that not only runs schools or sponsor schools, but do the research and provide support and guidance for schools that want to rethink what it means. And then also, and we'll stop here.
I think you could just you should just read them all. I mean, we might as well just give it to the people, because they ain't gonna read it.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Just read the headline and we can jump in. Yeah.
Number 4 is they prepare young people for jobs in emerging industries. So this is
I went to school and I graduated from Lodi. I went to school in Stockton, and the Bear Creek High School is in the Lodi Unified School District. Yeah. They got their own issues though, but yes, there you go. Prepare for immersion.
So this is exactly. This is a school that's kind of set in a particular region and with industry, right? And so, so there's a connection there. Let's see. Number 5, they're rethinking what classrooms, campuses, and school days look like. Right, this is a big one. Like I said, most schools today, the vast majority, probably look similar to what they looked like 50 years ago, 75 years ago. The classic brick and mortar. We got, they redefine who high school is for, right? Just as many schools now redefine what kind of space a high school should occupy, others are rethinking their customer base, right? Which is interesting. And then 2 more. They serve students of color in a way more supportive way. Okay. They highlight the Brooklyn Lab School here. So these are actual schools that, thank you for dropping that in the chat. These are schools that are actually doing the work today, right? 2 teachers now lead a class, at least one who's a special education certified teacher, as the school adopts an all-inclusion model. Yeah. That's great. And then they cut through the traditional structures.
You may want to define what an all-inclusion model is.
Yeah. So inclusion means inclusion has to do with special education. And inclusion means, comes from the word include, obviously. It means that students are in, there's one setting, right? Students are not pulled out for services. They don't have specific special education classes. Students are just special education students are included with all students, right? And then let's see. And then they cut through the traditional structures to find what works. So this is like the kind of spirit of innovation here. So, we have this article highlights several models that are actually up and running and functioning. And so let's jump into a discussion. I think what are we I mean, you can why don't we just first reflect on what you saw there? What jumped out at you of those 8 different observations that they documented?
I can kick it off. I think, I know we got the questions that you wrote, but hopefully this don't step too much on those answers. But I think it's just a willingness. I think the willingness to try something different, to not be afraid to fail, and to kind of include that school community and build something that may not have been seen before. Like sometimes you don't know what you like or what you want until you try. And I've worked in places, district, charter, whatever, and sometimes people get a little gun shy and don't stick with it to see if it'll actually work. So, for these kids, like when you see kids at the harbor looking over the water and kind of seeing how that works, or in Lodi where there's a ton of just, it's huge, like wine country, things like that. Like, I could see a school frowning or getting scared to do that because it's alcohol. It's kind of a closed-in industry. And I could see people being like, these are kids, these are 17, 18-year-olds, but they'll be 21 at some point. The industry is industry. And I think, sometimes you gotta have people that's willing to just go on that path with you. And I think that your community will be better for it when you do.
Omar, what's on your mind?
Yeah, man, I got a lot of things. So like, just in terms of the comment, I personally, and this is speaking from experience, because I heard, a comment about like schools don't have windows and they look like this, and just what Dr. Cole was talking about. The psychology of the space matters immensely. Meaning like these schools feel and look like prisons. You're in a maze, you're shuffled class to class. It's based off of a little factory system. And it's just like, look, dude, you're trying to get these kids to be innovative and to think differently. And like, how are you going to do that if you're like still looking like you're Folsom Prison? And, look, speaking from experience, like UPLA East, I'm surprised we haven't won architecture awards yet. It is a completely open space concept. David, you've seen it in person, I believe.
Yes.
Tons of sunlight, tons of innovative space. It looks like a co-working space at Google. And therein lies, I think, one of the secrets of innovation is that you're not going to be able to innovate the curriculum if you haven't innovated the space. That's just first and foremost. The second is I wanted to answer our boy on Alonzo's question. He's like, who determines what students need? Is it based on who's evolving through the years? I think to answer your question, think a bit more basic, Alonzo, in that, like, remember high school, bro. Like I taught you in Coronado, like you shuffled class to class to class, and it was like, here's the curriculum, and we have zero focus on what your specific needs are as a person and as a student. Like, you may need a lot more attention in reading, but you're not going to get it. You may need less attention in math, but you're still going to have to do problems 1 through 72 odds only. And I think in these innovative high schools, we're really looking at data. So I've got 9th graders coming in, and I've got a slew of kids that are, at grade level. And I'm like, how am I pushing those kids to pass the exam to get into early college courses, to get them into early college courses? And then I'm looking at students that are reading at the 3rd grade level. And I'm like, how am I getting them into intense literacy courses and emerging bilingual courses to increase their English language proficiency and their literacy? So instead of giving the boilerplate curriculum to everybody, I am intently focused on the specific needs of our kids. And yes, Bill, prison freaks. The prison look freaks me out too. I can't stand it.
Well,
that's why we didn't design.
Let's look at a school. Let's look at a school that looks like a prison. Okay. This is not a prison school. This is one of Omar's campuses, right? And I don't know if you've seen this, Charles, but these are just the concept drawings, but it looks just like this. There's actually real photos. So this is just getting to Omar's point about like the space is so, it can be so important, right? And when you create these spaces, this is an actual photo, I think, of the inside.
Yeah, that is the actual photo.
Yeah, this is El Paso Leadership Academy East Side Campus. Built this school from the ground up. Here's some photos here. So with this kind of space for regular classroom instruction, for open collaborative space, right, that you have, there's a slide in the school.
That's dope.
I went down the slide. You have all these different ways.
It's real quick.
Yeah, I mean, and you have all these different, ways that students can come together in big open spaces. So, I mean, this is definitely part of it when we talk about innovation, is like rethinking the physical space, right?
Yeah, I mean, that looks beautiful, man. Kudos to you and what you built up there, brother, and your team.
Yeah, no, man, I appreciate it. I just think, like, look, Bill kind of puts it well. Like, if you're building this place with the intent that students are going to misbehave and it's all about discipline, well, like, dude, then you're going to function that way. And if you're building this place, teaching them responsibility, teaching them trust, teaching them I like skill sets and ideological perspectives that haven't been taught in schools in 70 years, because it's always like, well, that's the parents' responsibility. And I'm like, I don't know, it's society's responsibility at this point, in my opinion. Then you have a very different feel and aesthetic to the school. And then therein lies just the basic recipe of innovation. Because I keep saying, look, dude, like if you keep doing the exact same thing and you're like, we need more coding. They're like, that's the El Paso community. They're like, all the like philanthropists are like, we just need to have more coding. And I'm like, dude, like, like, I'm really glad you said that. And that coding was your panacea. Now that AI has come through and has basically like rewritten the entire ideology of coding, it's so far behind the time and dictated by people who have no idea about schools or innovation. And therein lies the problem. You have people designing schools and running schools that have never been a teacher nor know how to innovate for the future. And this is why we kind of have this like described tendency to make these like small incremental choices in our high school versus let's blow up the model. And I think like personally, just jumping into the internship one, like that's written into our charter. It's such a huge component that I believe in immensely. Big picture learning is really leading the way on this one. And what the problem is now, forget about the structure of the school, is the structure of the credit system that we have to deal with as a state. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I in Texas, without being an alternative school, meaning you have like a college prep model, which is what I am. You have an alternative school, which is a totally different kind of charter and different system of operation than other schools. I'm trying to figure out with a credit system, how do I devise a way to get my kids out of school 2 days out of the week to start doing internships? And I'm going to have to get really creative on how I deal with that to get them credits during those times so that I'm not in trouble with the state. So I think one topic to bring up is, dude, innovation's awesome. What are the constraints from the state that prevents us from doing so?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So I think Omar, I've told you about this school. Charles, you know about this school. So this is just a little feature here on a charter school in Oakland, California called Latitude High School. And this is kind of the cornerstone of what they do around extended learning opportunities, internships, college coursework, shadowing and site visits, and entrepreneurship. The school is, I don't know how long it's been around for now, maybe like, I don't know, Charles, if you have any idea, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah,
maybe.
like less than 10.
Yeah. And when this, and this is a small, charter school, it's part of a charter management organization, but the work that it took to get this school opened in Oakland was massive. It was gargantuan, meaning like we had to go through, and on paper, it looked amazing. They're also a big picture partner. On paper, it looked amazing. The team was amazing. But we had to fight through the district, which denied the school. We had to fight through the county, which denied the school. We had to go all the way to the state capitol, where they ultimately approved this charter. And the school is open today, and it's thriving, and it's a hub of innovation. Not just in Oakland, but across the country, right? But we had to fight so hard just to get this school to provide an opportunity for the school to even exist, right? And so so that gets to your point, and it's not, politics are one angle, but like what other or similar experiences have you had? Like, what do you think the big challenges are to, bringing innovation into, I'll just say, the public education space? Obviously, you talked about the credit system. We've talked about the master schedules. We've talked about seat time, all these things. But, what else is it that's kind of keeping big systems, or keeping big systems, not allowing big systems to innovate?
Omar was about to go off on it earlier, so I'll let him. I'll go after Omar.
I mean, I appreciate it, man. Just also shout out to Cash Rules Everything Around Me. Love that, man.
I should have wore a Woo like shirt, but yes.
Oh yeah, I just got that. Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, Tang. Reminds me of Chappelle Show. So here's what I got. There is in my mind, there's no like mainstream alternative on high school graduation in terms of the logistics other than credits. Meaning, hey, we know, and like, I don't know who the we is, like your state education department is saying, the state education department says you need 3 credits of math, you need 3 credits of science, you need 4 credits of English. These are the things that we believe you need in order to be successful in the real world. And look, these are people, right? There's not some, mastermind person that is saying, man, like I've devised the most ingenious way for kids to graduate from high school. This is the system. And here's the problem. You're like, well, I mean, can't we break up the system? It's hard to break the system up because not only are states so used to doing it this way, and their attendance is calculated in this way, their graduation is calculated in this way. So you have software systems that's tied to the system. You've got money that's tied to this system. You've got people's jobs that are tied to the system. Then it gets even more complicated because this is how the colleges are determining whether or not you graduated or not, because this is how we calculate GPA. This is how we determine if you, took AP classes. This is how we determine if you graduated from an accelerated manner versus, a much more basic traditional manner, meaning hey, traditional maybe 22 credits and accelerated is 26 credits. That's all tied to, college entry. So you have all of these systems that people built, but they were so anachronistic and so old and so outdated that it's time for a brand new system. And I got to tell you, Big Picture Learning's actually figured it out. They have this incredible competency-based graduation system called the IBPLC, the International Big Picture Learning Certification. And they've got 40% of universities in all of Australia already accepting this formulation, which is basically competency-based learning. And for our listeners, what the heck does that mean? It's cool, man. They've broken up into these cool competencies, empirical analysis and social skill sets and social analysis, meaning hey, yo, can you justify your ability to do scientific reasoning through research that you've done and explored these competencies in a comprehensive rubric. So again, to break that down, it's here's this rubric, right? Which basically says, this is a competency and this is how we're going to grade it. And these are the levels that you need to achieve in order to demonstrate to us that you actually achieve this competency. It's a 2-year process to demonstrate these competencies. So instead of taking a test, they are doing actual research and actually having to do hard work and prove, hey, I've learned this, and here's the process that I use to do so. And then they have to figure out a way of effectively communicating that, which is another competency level. That is a very innovative way of developing a skill set. And we did a show on it. Remember the 8 skill sets that kind of make for a proficient person in college and life? That's what's happened. The thing is, I'm going through this process now, and I'm going to have to find a university president in the state of Texas that's willing to experiment with me and say, hey, instead of the old conventional credit system, will you be able to take this system? Let me show it to you. Let me send you some graduates who have graduated both with the credits and this system. And I want you to see and compare my kids who have gone through this system with other kids. Are they more robust? Do they have greater autonomy? Are they more responsible? And then through the years, I'm going to have to prove to them, hey, let's get rid of the credits and just use this system. They're going to be like, Omar, these kids are amazing. They're coming with competencies that are much more like my college graduates than my high school graduates. And I'm going to be like, yeah, take this system. Then I'm going to need to go to a large scale system like the University of Texas system or the A&M system and say, hey, I've got these university presidents already on board. Are you willing to give this a chance? Then go to TEA, the Texas Education Agency, and say, I've got an alternative way of graduating kids from high school. Will you be able to accept it against the credit system? So I say all this just for our audience to understand these are the mountains of logistics that I am having to go through just to be innovative. Because David, just like you said, look at what you had to do for the Latitude School, where it just kept meeting like roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And I mean, I bet you $1,000, like Doc's seeing this from the parent side, from a community side, people very used to the credit system. Like, I don't know, Doc, what do you think? Like, you think that like people are going to be wanting to change the system, or do you think they find comfort in the conventionality of the way it is now?
Well, I had a different answer, but I was letting you kind of go deep. You kind of went into like a more of a case study and for you all and what y'all were kind of dealing with. I was going to zoom back out to the question about those challenges, but I wanted you to be able to get your shit off. So like, do what you got to do. But you was getting it off. I'm not mad at you. Oh, no, no fireworks. I mean, here's the thing. I think I like your perspective because you're in it. Like, you're talking as somebody who is leading a school, being innovative and running it. And this is what you ran into in your case. And I think that is actually really good insight. My answer was going to be kind of more for the layperson that's not leading the school, that's not having to deal with that stuff. So when you talk about what's hurting innovation, David, I'm looking at things like, money or buy-in, right? Like, it's hard to get buy-in. It usually to stop innovation, it usually just takes one or two loud voices, right? Like I've seen it happen, especially if you're in a district context. I would also say lacking the will to innovate. Like, there are people that are just afraid. You have to have a strong will for it, because if you don't, as soon as you run into a wall, which you will, there's always going to be a wall. Do you have the tenacity to go through or up, under, or around that wall? And then finally, I think lacking an innovative mindset. Like, you actually have to have the mindset to be thinking in that way. Like, it takes, like when I was a kid at a traditional public school, and when I in Paducah, where he named, like, we used to take field trips. There's a lot of like dairy farms and stuff around. We saw people churning butter and things like that. Ironically, when you got in trouble, that's also the place they sent you. You had to churn butter and stuff. But there's somebody with a vision that says, listen, farming is lucrative if you know what you're doing. Like, and this is something in this land that needs to happen. I think that's the Lodi piece, right? It's really basically farming just for wine. But you have to have that type of mindset. So when you talk about the things that hinder, sometimes people can't see the forest for the trees. And if people aren't, and then if you add on kids being behind and things like that, it's easy to get naysayers to like quench that, unless you have a strong leader like the Omar Yanar, who can build something from a napkin, build something from scratch, take something from an image on a paper and build it up to where David Castillo is flying out there and then sliding down this slide that was just a figment in Omar's imagination 2 years prior.
Wow. All right. Yeah. I lost your screen for a second. I think barriers that I see, you've all talked about several of them. I think what Charles is talking about, and Omar too, just the general resistance to change in general, right? And, especially in school systems. Who used to say that? Was it Howard Fuller's quote? Everyone likes innovation until it's time to change something. Or what was, you remember what his quote was, Charles?
I mean, I don't know. Howard got a lot of quotes.
It was something like that. Yeah. It was like, everybody likes innovation until it's time to change. So I think there's definitely a cultural issue in education spaces. And I think the other piece is Omar talked about, the mountain that you're trying to conquer. I mean, I got exhausted just hearing you talk about those efforts, because that's a huge lift. So trying to work your way through that system, the policy and like regulation land. I think also there's a teacher aspect to it, right? Like teacher training in general, I don't know if I'd say it's in a state of crisis, but our colleges and universities struggle to train enough teachers to effectively teach in our traditional schools. So then if you're going to create innovative models, you also need innovative models to train these teachers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to happen in the big colleges and university systems. So I think for me, that's another big area, like the teacher training piece of it, because teaching is hard in general, but if you're going to ask somebody to come in and teach in a non-traditional, innovative space, I think it's exciting, but it can be incredibly challenging, right?
Yeah, I mean, but take up the challenge, man. I mean, listen, it's not
like, of course,
even when it's not like in the schools where we're not being innovative, like we're just killing it teaching math, like where we're just killing it teaching people how to read. Like, I mean, listen, university trained college credentialing systems have had a lot of scrutiny, and they deserve it. And I know you've been one of the people that's been very critical of like CSU's model and how they do those things and who's holding them to scrutiny. Listen, man, I think when people say, well, we can't teach that, or we can't teach people how to do that, well, I think it's a cop-out. I think if you got something that wants to be different, utilize your community. Like when you have good partnerships, like those internship programs, like, and not to skip ahead, I know that's another question, but part of what these really like innovative schools do is they build incredible partnerships. LeBron James doesn't know how to do any of that stuff, but he is LeBron James. He can get partnerships in these places that can come in and partner and do those things. If we teach kids how to be entrepreneurs around barbers, being a barber or a hairstylist, I don't expect the math teacher to know how to do that. I expect us to go get a contract or bring in people that teach in those places and supervise and be with them. So you got a credentialed person in the space to be teaching that stuff. Like, these are problems that we can that's easy to solve relative to what Omar was talking about, which I think is a much tougher problem. But that's what I'm talking about, the will. Do you have the will to do these things?
Yeah, man, I got a couple of comments on that. Like, I have this conversation with our teachers all the time. And it's this ideology that they think that the way they were taught is the way to teach. So teachers often revert back to the way they were taught. And like, just to use El Paso statistics, right? This isn't all El Paso. So like, for our audience, I use El Paso just like as a microcosm, right? Like, here's a small example of what could be going on nationally, is that like only 16% of the El Paso community in total, like regardless of race, economics, anything else, will graduate from college. Okay, just hunker that one down. So if you got,
what is that number again?
El Paso, 16.
Wow.
16%. So 16 out of 100 will graduate from college in this region. Okay, just think about that. Of those 16, right, 85% of them will have gone to University of Texas at El Paso. Okay, so that is where the overwhelming majority of teachers come in from El Paso. Now, let me get back to the 16. When these 16 who go to college, of those who decide to go on and become teachers and so forth, what they're thinking is, well, the way I was taught is the way I should teach because that worked for me. And they're not thinking the obvious, which is, I'm part of this 16%. It didn't work for the 84%. And this is a huge problem when it comes to innovation in teaching, is that these teachers are thinking the way I was taught is going to work, but they're not realizing the way they were taught did not work for the overwhelming majority of students. So as El Paso is an example, 84% of kids did not graduate from college. Well, the way that you were taught clearly didn't work for these 84%. So why are we still teaching the same way? This in turn gets into the teacher education program model, which ironically, I'm literally speaking to the Dean of Education at UTEP on Friday to have a conversation about the model and about like, can we partner up and can we discuss more innovative ways of doing this program? Because these teachers are so radically underprepared to deal with any innovative model. I mean, they don't even know how to teach, least of all deal with an innovative model. So like in innovative schools, we have to completely partner up, as you said, reteach them how to teach from scratch, because their certification means like almost, you know, very little to nothing. And, you know, just to kind of comment back like to Bill, and I'm so excited for some like audience participation today. Like, I'm with you, Bill. Like, I'm with you in like a big bad way about like, you know, we need to work on more innovative models in our school. But like, I kind of disagree with you on a little bit. Like, look, we got an early college. I'm all about getting our kids into early college, but Bill, you have to get those kids to pass a test to take early college courses. So what schools are actually preparing kids other than my own from 6th grade to pass that test? It now becomes a self-selection criteria for those that have and those that don't. So the early college model works awesome for kids who have been, I don't know, like in a very advantageous situation to pass that test, which is an English test in 9th grade to say I'm at the college level.
But it also depends on where state you're in too. It's different for different states. Like in Indianapolis, I just saw one in Gary. Like I'm in the Illinois, but Gary, Indiana is 20 minutes away. Shout out to Michael Jackson's house. There's a school in the middle of Gary. I mean, kids are graduating with their BA. Chris Stewart came up and I met them out there. They had these juniors or seniors, young black kids. They were training to be pilots and already had a BA and had over 100 flight miles already, right? Like like the school I just saw in Indianapolis.
Like a BA or an associate's degree?
A BA.
Like a full BA.
A BA. And so we interviewed on A Black Hands. You ever seen that movie that show Doc McStuffins? Have you heard of it? You never heard of it? Doc McStuffins comes on like it's either Nickelodeon or Disney Channel. Excuse me, Doc McStuffins, loving fans, but it's based off this mother who's a doctor, and her daughter has like this, like dresses up as like a doctor, Doc McStuffins. We had the mother that show was based on. Her daughter, both her daughters and her sons, like they're like two of the country's youngest. One just became a lawyer at 20. One is the other one just graduated from high school. So, and they have a homeschool model. The point that I'm making is what you're saying is absolutely right, Omar. I just know in different states is different things you can do and kind of move around. Like the school Believe that I'm working on this project with, David, thank you for covering for me. That's where I've been at. Their partner community college, they're AA, but they also have people graduating with, you know, barber degrees or just a bunch of stuff like in the moment, but their partner community college is right across the street. So like the partnership is so strong. But yeah, man, there's different ways, but there's different types of like there's not as many people like you, Omar, and like Believe or like that school in Gary. But when you start to see them, it just opens your eyes to what's possible. Like that like
right.
And it's incredible.
And that's kind of what I'm getting into is that like, man, there's kick-ass schools of innovation out there. But like when kind of getting back to a little bit of what Bill was saying, it's like, don't turn the means into the ends. Like I kind of have to, in my opinion, Bill, like I can innovate all day long, but until I have a college that will recognize a very different certification process than the credit system, I'm still stuck to an antiquated system. So I don't want to make an assumption about what you meant. I'd rather you kind of like, you know, chime in and make a comment and help clarify like where I'm going with this. But what it seems to me is that innovation should exist regardless of what's going on. But then you kind of hit a wall, especially if these kids are going to go to college, Bill. Now, if they're not, kind of what you're saying is like, hey, how do we innovate to get a community college, or even like what Doc is saying, even like a BA out of high school, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dude, badass. Let's eliminate the need for post-secondary because we're really integrating it into the high school system. Absolutely. But therein lies another issue. How do you get those kids who are oftentimes extraordinarily behind on their literacy levels up to level in a very innovative way to ensure that they could take advantage of that model? But then how do you make that become kind of prevalent? See, we're like these shadow innovation schools that exist. They highlighted 8 in the whole country for this article. And I'm like, that's badass. And we need to learn from them. But it's more to the tune of like, how do we start shifting our traditional high schools into more of these innovative models to make it sustainable so that like more kids have the opportunity to attend places like this? I think that's where I'm butting up with it, to be like, damn, it's cool that we're doing it, but it'd be even cooler if like every kid had an opportunity to go to something like this. And therein lies like why I think innovation is so important. Innovation shouldn't just be for the sake of innovation. It really should be to push all these other schools to start shifting their practices and their paradigms. And like, that's the hope, at least for me, man.
Well, this is Haley. This is Haley Taylor Schlitz, who that show's mother is based off of. Not only did she graduate super early and is passing the bar at 21, her youngest sister at 18 just passed and is like the youngest something, and her brother as well. Like, this entire family it is incredible. She's actually pretty attainable. She was on A Black Hands. She writes for Ed Post. We're friends on Twitter. Like, maybe we can get her on to come and talk. But yeah, innovation, man. They took advantage of homeschooling, but there's some folks out there, like whether it's a homeschooling co-op, whether it's what you're doing, Omar, whether it's schools that have just taken that plunge. And that's the thing. Some have to do it well. And I get your point, right? Like some of our, like the proficiency, where are we at on proficiency? But if we start from a place of like, not just everybody's going to be behind or whatever the case is, but we know this is where our goal is. I just think you move differently with them around proficiency. Like, I think that you're making sure people are proficient. So I went and saw Purdue Polytech. That's a very innovative school in Indianapolis. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. Obviously, it has ties to Purdue. But we visited that school when we were doing the A Black Hands tour, and the school is set up like a college campus. They don't have teachers, they have coaches, and these young people everything is project based, but proficiency based. So you move on at your own pace, but only after you've demonstrated proficiency. And because they're partnered with a university system, like you got kids coming out of there doing all kinds of crazy stuff, right? And the freedom of motion and movement that these young people have, like it requires a lot from them to be like responsible. But here's the thing: when you assume that these young people can be responsible and you treat them that way, these are some of the most mature 14 and 15 and 16-year-olds I had ever met. Like, like there's no bail schedule. Like they're operating in their own space. And Omar, let's say you have one of the teachers, just like instead of a homeroom, you're assigned 30 kids as their coach, and you're coaching them as they go through it. Every project they're doing, they have to prove proficiency in math and history and all of the state, regulations. It's quite fascinating. They have a gang of money, though. I will say that Purdue Polytech is throwing the bag. I don't want to at Purdue to get mad at me. I am assuming that university is throwing a ton of resources, their professors, and access to their, to their stuff at them. But that's what it should be, right? Like that was the goal for Berkeley High. UC Berkeley was supposed to be building this lab high school, which has some incredible classes, but they probably need to strengthen that partnership to where there's an integration of the university with that high school. But you can do a lot, man. You can do a lot. It doesn't all have to look the same.
So
straight up,
yeah, I'm looking up these schools as you're talking about them. This is good. So I guess my and let's say we're 5 minutes out. I guess going back to the question, because we have you have school districts with lab schools, right? Or they call them magnet schools. So you might have a big school district that has maybe, I don't know, 50, 60 schools in it, and maybe 5 of them are designated as a magnet or some kind of specialty school that has where you see more innovation. They may have some more autonomy over,
Right.
hiring and how they run the school. And then we have charter schools, right? And this is like, I believe, one of the reasons that a charter school was ever created was to allow for autonomy and innovation, right? By people that actually, led one of the largest teacher unions, because they wanted to see what were the possibilities, right? And so these schools exist. You've named off a bunch. We looked at a bunch in this piece on the 74. So there's clearly there's like a roadmap. There's a blueprint, right? Omar's creating his own in Texas right now. So I guess the question is, again, and we can go into closing thoughts, Charles. Is what what do you think? What are the real barriers, right? Outside of the technical things that we've talked about, like if there's a roadmap, if there are examples of schools that are actually doing this work and getting amazing results for young people, why are we having a hard time replicating that?
I think you have to, because one, man, I'll be esoteric. Like I think you have to believe that this is possible. I think you have to have the confidence of it. And I think in a lot of our schools, and I love our teachers, especially the ones that's working really hard, but I think in a lot of our schools, I think a lot of our teachers doubt themselves. And if they even know not just how to do this innovative stuff, but the stuff that they are supposed to be teaching. Or, if you got the math teacher teaching history, I don't think they're going in with the most confidence. I think it's really what you believe people can achieve. And when you don't believe it, you don't push the line. When you're not confident in yourself, you don't push the line. And so, what do you believe is possible for these kids, black, white, rich, poor? It will shine through with how you push and how you treat them. Look at a basketball practice from a championship coach, a coach that has won multiple championships, like a Coach K or somebody like that, versus a team that loses all the time. They might be teaching from the same playbook. They might run the same drills, but the belief is different. And the way that I push you is different. And the wisdom I give you is different. And I think that holds a lot of people back. I think Omar can do that because Omar came from where he came from, but has done great things. He's seen it. His belief is there. And he believes enough that he can bring people along on that belief, but he also has the strength that if they can't believe and can't get on board, then maybe this ain't the right train for them, and I'm gonna make the right decision. I think that is where you have to get to. You can either get on this winning train or be like the San Antonio Spurs. This is how we do things here, and we win championships. Or you can be the Charlotte Hornets and just perpetually lose. All got professional athletes, but one got a significantly more championships.
Muggsy Bogues, man, poor Charlotte.
And Muggsy was great, man. Charlotte was actually good when Muggsy was playing. Yeah, that was back then.
Man. Yeah, man. And then who was the dude that dressed like a female?
Larry Johnson, baby, Grandma Mom.
Yeah, Grandma Mom.
And Alonzo Mourning. Oh yeah, bro, I know my hoop. They had Alonzo Mourning. They had a great team. Yeah, they got close, but it was a goddamn Michael Jordan that was in the way. That's all that was.
Yep.
Agree, man. I think it comes down, David, to like, and if you'll excuse me, because I have to go a little bit early, so I'm just going to kind of leave this comment. I think it's like a self-selection thing, meaning like the people who are extraordinarily innovative, period, right? Who can kind of envision a different future and envision creativity within the systems that exist. Are they coming into education? Because like education necessarily isn't rewarding innovation, nor is it really monetarily awarding innovation. I think there's extraordinary people in in education, but I think they get stifled. I think they get stumped. I think they have great ideas and some like egotistical superintendent is like, no, or some egotistical principal is like, no. And I think Doc is right in that like people do have innovative thoughts, and I want to converge onto two different paths. Those that are in education oftentimes get stifled and aren't in like a position like I'm in, where it's like, yo, I get to dictate the rules because I'm the superintendent of this charter. But then on this branch, I wonder if a lot of those people are going into tech and into engineering and into more like at least monetarily lucrative businesses. So you don't have as large of a swath of innovation in education. It's just more like people are like, I want to make a change, but I don't really know how. And therefore it kind of gets into Doc's problem, which is like, people who want to, but maybe not know how. Just a quick shout out to this program, Education Pioneers, that I did. That's kind of a cool program. It's a fellowship program for graduate school students, and they're trying to pull in not just people in education, but people who are getting their MBAs, so their business degrees, people that are getting their law degrees, people that are getting their public policy degrees, people that are getting, you know, all kinds of like different kinds of like public health, right? Well, they're trying to pull those people in to say, hey, have you given the education sector some thought? Because there's jobs here, and we desperately need a diversity of opinion and creativity and innovation from the different sectors. And that's kind of their hypothesis, that if we bring in these folks from different sectors, you're going to have different level of innovative thought on how to solve these issues. Because maybe if you're only selecting from a group of educators, it's really kind of just one path, one river towards that ocean versus multiple rivers. So I think it becomes a self-selection issue, as well as, sadly, a conventional stifling issue. And I bet Bill would agree with that. Just like, you know, educators that are just like, it's always been done this way. And it's like, well, shit hasn't worked, man. So why are we doing it this way?
Yeah.
On that note, man, I got to thank Doc, David. Love you guys, man.
Peace
Have
out,
a great
man.
week. I got to bounce. I'll see y'all soon.
And David,
All right, take care.
Have a good one. Oh, and David, you've been doing a good job of just leading us, brother. Like, what's your thought, man? So you can finally get out in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one piece that we didn't talk about. So we talked about the whole like teacher component of it, but I think what Omar was bringing up, and one of the challenges is there's a leadership component as well, right? And so leading in an innovative school is very different than leading in a traditional model. The traditional school mindset is much more compliant based and like management based, right? You got your boxes you got to cross off and check off.
Sound like a prison warden.
Yeah, I mean, trying not to rock the boat, you know, and like just keep, you know, you keep the ship moving. Whereas in an innovative model, it's, you know, going back to your analogy, it's like it's a different style of coaching. You're actually running a team, right? And there's a motivational component to it. You still have to be a good manager, because you have to you still have to check off all the boxes, right? But then you also have to kind of let go and take a leap of faith, right? Not a negligent one, but you know, if you're going to try something innovative, there's a certain aspect, and that's why people don't do it, because it can feel kind of scary, right? Because it's different. What is it going to look like to do even like project-based learning? What is it going to look like to have students off campus doing internships? What is it going to look like to have, you know, maybe non-structured collaboration time for students, right? All of these things. And so I think it's it just goes back to a mindset shift that I feel like needs to happen from the level of like district leaders, right? Site leaders, and teachers. But the problem is the way that the systems are set up now, people often move up the ranks. And so the mindset, you know, you don't have a disruption in the mindset. This is what Omar was talking about, bringing outside people in that can think differently about education, as opposed to rewarding people that, you know, have always worked in the system, and they're going to be the last ones to rock the boat, right?
Yeah, there'll always be excuses and reasons why you can't do something. And I think innovative people get past that, and they focus on what they can do and making that happen. So I thought it was a good show, man. I think it's a big one. It's tough. We didn't get to all your questions, but I tried to cram in most of my answers for you, brother. Well, let me go ahead and close this out, man. For Jubilee and Omar, that's David. I'm Charles. We will see you next time. Same bat time, same bat station. Peace out.